what amazes me is that in a lot of ways, we really know more about the conditions in outer space than we do on our own oceans. And that's just crazy. But did you know we have no real-time tracking on a tsunami as it crosses the Pacific? Well, if you don't know what's going on out in the oceans, how can you manage it? And the oceans are critically important because it's the source of our food, most of our transport happens on it, it's the source of most of our oxygen, and it's where most of our CO2 goes. So how do we know what's going on in the ocean today? Mostly, it's through a couple of different means. We have spacecraft that look down, and that's great for doing global measurements of what's going on out in the ocean, things like climate monitoring. But for a lot of things, you just really need to have a sensor in the water. I mean, if you're trying to measure how many fish there are, or where the whales are, or a tsunami crossing the Pacific, or the temperature, or if you're trying to do a lot of climate measurements, you really need to have a sensor in the water. I mean, there are huge swaths of the ocean that have absolutely no coverage. So if you want to know if somebody's illegally fishing in some area, we have no data. If you want to know what the condition is in the water, or the salinity, or the temperature as a function of depth, or the currents, or so on, for most of the world's ocean, we have no idea. What if instead your sensors could swim themselves to wherever you want them? I have a coworker who likes to talk about people's rich fantasy worlds, and this is my rich fantasy world. It's to turn the ocean into something like this. I want to put thousands of these little ecologically friendly, self-propelled robots out there on the ocean. Because then you could do some really interesting things. Imagine what you could do. You could track hurricanes coming across the Atlantic Ocean and measure the temperature in the water and get a better handle on whether or not they're going to intensify. You could monitor the Gulf of Mexico for oil spills. You could monitor marine protected reserves, which we're currently not doing very well. You could vastly increase the number of weather stations out there and improve weather forecasts. So I think it's going to be an interesting few years as we go ahead. The possibilities are endless.